guys, welcome back to the Ford Assist podcast. This is Ian. I'm going to be switching things up a little bit. Each Tuesday, I'm going to bring you something called Tactical Tuesday. And all that means is I'm going to sit on my ass, look at a video or a news article, read it, or bring you through the video, and we are going to Monday morning quarterback it and break down each situation as I see it. I will discuss tactics and do a debrief and give you the good, bad, or indifferent thoughts of how the officers in the video or in the news handled the situation and what I would have done differently or if I wouldn't have changed anything at all. This is going to be a very short podcast, maybe 15 or 20 minutes long, but I'm looking for your feedback, and I think it'll be great to get the discussion out amongst people, amongst other officers, and all it's going to do in the long run is make us better. So sit back, relax, listen to Tactical Tuesdays. Hey guys, welcome back to the Ford Assist podcast. This is Ian. This is the first episode of the Tactical Tuesdays episode. This episode, I'm going to discuss a incident that occurred in Seattle in 2020. So if you can imagine, this is back in the height of the pandemic and when the George Floyd situation came out. So this is from the Seattle Times newspaper on March 25th, 2021, and it states Seattle police officer was justified in the 2020 shooting of a man holding a young child. So what I'm going to do on my YouTube page, because I haven't figured out how to do these voice layover things because I'm a freaking dumbass. I'm actually going to post the video up of the news commentation so you can see the body cam footage of what actually happened. But the article here says a Seattle police SWAT officer's decision to shoot a 24-year-old man in the head while the man held his young daughter last spring in Columbia City was lawful and proper, the Seattle Police Department Office of Police Accountability, or the OPA, determined. Now, it goes into talking about this officer. So Officer Noah Zeck, who's 39 years old, and he had approximately 15 years of law enforcement experience, including being a SWAT operator. He was previously identified as the officer who fatally shot Sean Fuhr. So I believe I pronounced this guy's name right. It's Fuhr. Just before 3 p.m. on April 29th, in the 4100 block of 37th Avenue South, Zeck was not named in the OPA's case summary, which was made public Thursday, but is instead referred to named employee number 1 through the 17-page report. Now, what this article goes on to saying is, to give you a little background, man and a woman, I think they were married, had a young daughter, and the man and the woman got into a domestic dispute. Now, during that domestic dispute, the husband, he ended up firing a shot at the girlfriend or wife or whatever she was, and he ended up taking their daughter and running out of the apartment building with her. So if you can imagine being a responding officer to this call, you get a report of a domestic situation where there's been a shot fired at one of the victims, and the little girl is taken by the suspect, who's the father, and he's running through different apartment complexes, down alleyways, and what you see in the body cam footage is the officers chasing after the suspect who's holding the daughter. Now, they don't know at this time whether he still has the firearm in his hand, whether he's going to kill the daughter, and they are taking it as a hostage situation, and that the fact that he's kidnapped his daughter. So what they end up doing is you see the body cam footage of the police officer from Seattle that's running with his handgun out, and he's making the radio call. But then you see an officer dressed in like light gray BDUs, like a tactical uniform for those of you guys that don't know, and he's wearing a black vest, black helmet, and he's carrying an M4 rifle that's suppressed. So what ends up happening is the SWAT operator who's dressed in the gray uniform, he runs past the regular patrolman who, that's the body cam that's being played, and the SWAT operator takes off in a dead sprint towards the suspect, who in turn, the suspect goes between these two houses, in between a fence in the house, and gets pinned down in this backyard. Now, while this SWAT operator rounds the corner, he sees the suspect turn, and he's holding the little girl up, and it appears that the suspect's going to take this little girl's life. Now, in this 17-page report, the biggest thing that they were going after the officer is he ended up shooting this suspect, and there was no weapon found. There was a weapon that was shot in the apartment, but the officer took it as this is a hostage situation. So he rounds this corner in a full sprint, finds the suspect turning with the little girl, and you see the officer slow down to almost a walking, and then he comes to a pause and he breaks the shot and he shoots a suspect in the face. He takes that critical headshot, just like each SWAT operator is trained to do during any hostage situation. We are going to engage the threat in the most lethal way possible. So it goes on that Zek was, again, this is the officer, Zek was alleged to have failed to use de-escalation tactics before using deadly force, and that may have been contrary to the police policy. So Zek, who is white, was also alleged to have engaged in biased policing in shooting Fur, who was black. So again, this is the height of the George Floyd situation, so everything is being critical. And I'm going to tell you that in a situation such as a hostage situation, it doesn't matter if the person is white, black, red, yellow, orange, purple. Police are going to treat them the same, okay? Race has nothing to do with a hostage situation. Now, I wasn't in this officer's shoes. I don't know what he saw when they rounded that corner. We see it all the time where, the officer is telling someone to show them their hands and they point something at them. The officer thinks it's a gun, so they shoot. Ends up being like a cell phone, or it ends up being something else, right? That's not a weapon. Officers have to make these split-second decisions, and I'm going to tell you why. The suspect made the mistake when he fired the first shot. Okay, everybody gets in arguments, and we all understand domestic situations. But when you fire that first shot in the apartment, and then you take your little baby girl and you run out of the house with them, essentially kidnapping them out of the apartment building, and you're running from the police with the little girl in your hands, put yourself in law enforcement's shoes. Okay, all day long you are going to take that as he just kidnapped his daughter. He's shot a round off. He has the weapon, and he's going to kill that little girl if I don't do something. Okay, so that is the mindset that. Now, whether this was a race-based thing or not, obviously this police agency, and it sounds like their division of criminal investigations that does the investigation for the officer involved shooting, found him not guilty and found that he was justified based on the information that he was given at the time and based on the situation that he faced. So let's talk about tactics. This officer went from a full-on sprint to walking to engaging that suspect in a manner that was that critical shot. That is that quintessential hostage shot. Okay, so he knows that the suspect has his daughter in his arms. He can't afford to miss. Okay, and he can't afford to hesitate either, because priority of life. So let's explain priority of life really quick. Okay, priority of life is that little girl, the hostage. Okay, she is number one. Number two is other people in the community, other citizens. They are second in line. Third in line would be the officers that are there, your day-to-day patrolmen that are on scene, chasing after this guy. Fourth in line would be the SWAT operators. Okay, they would risk their lives to save everybody else on that list before, something happened to them. So in number 5, in last place, is this suspect. Okay, so he is at the bottom of the totem pole. He is going to be the person that has the intent to take this little girl, fire this shot, and kidnap her and essentially hold her as a hostage. So what this officer does is he rounds the corner. Again, he takes this critical shot on this suspect, and you see as the video goes on, the officer approaches the suspect, and his number one priority is this little girl. So the second SWAT operator who shows up, the one who you'll see in the video, starts yelling at everybody to slow down. He's actually in a command and control situation, and he is taking this little girl. He ends up picking her up and handing her off to one of the uniformed officers on scene, and he's taking control of the scene. Okay, so we have the same structure on our team. We have a team commander, a team leader, and 2 assistant team leaders. So their job is to manage the entire team. Now, everybody on our team is a leader in and of themselves, and they are free to make their own decisions and their own split-second calls. But we have command positions and a hierarchy in place, because if I'm an operator and I'm on point, or I'm in the number 3 position, or I'm in the number 5 position, all the way back to 12, I have a specific job, okay? And the commander or the team leader, their job is to watch the entire team and manage that. So what we get a lot of times is, we'll make a dynamic entry into a structure or a house, and instead of, throwing that flashbang or throwing that smoke as like a distractionary device, or breaking a window, or deploying our robot, or whatever we're going to do, the command and control will actually slow us down and say, okay, right now we're going to do a surround and call out. We've already made entry into the house. There's no point in going into that threshold, that unknown to where the suspect could be held up with weapons, and all we're doing is putting ourselves at risk. Or we may change the game and take the situation on from a different aspect. But that is at the command and control level, where they are orchestrating the whole team in order to continue with the mission and get the desired outcome from the team. So again, as a normal operator, your job is your specific area of operation. So you're covering a window, or you're covering a door or a hallway, and that goes from position 1 all the way to the end. The commander or the team leader, what they're doing is they are orchestrating everybody else. So that's what this guy is doing in this situation. He is taking control and slowing the situation down. Okay, there's been one shot that's been fired. That shot, the officer that shot is beyond the suspect now. He's covering him. And now this command and control SWAT operator, he is taking into account the whole situation, and he's trying to maintain that priority of life and get that little girl out of there. Now, we get into this whole fucking racist bias, all this shit. Irregardless how you feel in these situations, that officer had a job to do, and that job was to save that little girl at all cost. Now, again, based on the information that he was given at the time and the situation that he faced, in a split-second decision, he had to make the call. Because if that suspect has a weapon and he points it at the little girl, and that officer, he has one of two ways of doing it. He can either take the shot or he can hesitate. If he hesitates, that little girl gets shot by the father. Or second scenario is he hesitates, the suspect shoots the little girl, and then the suspect shoots himself. Third is suspect kills the little girl, then shoots the officer and kills him. Or fourth, the officer completely misses, and that suspect does one of those three other things where the little girl ends up dying at the end. So that officer had to maintain that SWAT operator had to maintain his equipment, be tactically proficient and confident in what he was doing, and have the confidence in his rifle to know that he could make that critical shot. Because if you look in the video, that's at least, a 20 or 25 foot headshot, which is not an easy thing to do when you've just sprinted around a whole apartment complex and now you're in an alleyway and you're facing a suspect holding a little girl in his hands. Okay, not a very easy thing to do, but it's something as SWAT operators we train all the time. We are training for that critical shot. We're training for that shot while we're moving, while we're at different angles, and in all different situations. So going back to this officer, he had 15 years law enforcement experience, and he's a SWAT operator, so he's held to a higher standard. He has a higher level of training than most regular patrol officers have. And, based on this situation, it's not like he shot the suspect 10 or 20 times with his rifle. He made one shot, one critical shot that if he would have hesitated going back to the what ifs, it could have ended in a very different result. The only thing that he gets hung up on here is while they're doing their investigation, they do not find a handgun on the suspect at the time when they're, doing the investigation of the body and in and around it. But the little girl is safe and she gets to live the rest of her life without this situation ongoing. So, the article goes on to tell that, this officer is racist, biased, the whole 9 yards, and, they're suing the department. And that's just something that we face. Imagine yourself, for those of you who aren't law enforcement, being criticized on every single thing that you do in your job to the point where you're not only going to lose your job if you are found that you did something wrong, but you very well could get your department sued. You could get yourself sued. You could lose your job, your house, your car. Your family could basically be put out on the street. And the likelihood of you going to jail or prison for something that was not your intention, but you made a bad mistake is a real reality out there. So I think these debriefs are very important. And I think that these Tactical Tuesdays are going to be beneficial to people. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Again, these are just going to be short 15, 20-minute clips. I encourage you to watch the video and give me some feedback or read the article and let me know what you think. You guys know what it is. It's Ford Assist Solutions. You can find me on Instagram or on YouTube. The podcast is on Apple and on YouTube. And if you have any questions, comment below or reach out to me at fordassistsolutions@gmail.com. Also, if you guys like this podcast and want to see more, like and subscribe below and leave a comment. And we'll see you guys next time. So stay strong, stay vigilant, be safe.